Hello and welcome to Tartan Touchdown, a Scottish American football podcast bringing the world of American football closer to the people of Scotland and across the world. Tonight I'm joined by two very special guests for a very special episode of our podcast. We are looking forward to the World Flag Series launching in the 25th of July, and I'm joined by two people involved in the league. First of all, we've got Phil Cutler. You are co-founder of the league. Thank you for joining us for this episode.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Excellent. And I'm also joined by one of the global superstars of world flag football who has signed up to play in the league. I've got Nausicaa Dell'Orto. Nausicaa, welcome and thanks for joining us. Nausicaa, how are you?
Hi, I'm very good and thank you for having me.
Perfect. What we're going to do in this episode, folks, is talk you through the new league that's been set up, what the aims and objectives of it are, why do we need a league, and from a player's perspective, what is it going to bring to the world of flag football. So Phil, I'm going to come to you first. So for those that don't know, what is World Flag Series? Tell us about it first.
Yeah, well, I think before I even get into what it is today, I think we need to understand how we got to this point. And I've played flag football for 20 years. I've witnessed the transformation of the sport from being very casual, very recreational, unstructured into what it's becoming, which is a very organized, very structured, a game that I think people really love, because it's gotten to a point where, it's grown so much. There's a lot of support internationally for it. The format's being standardized. And so you've gone from something that's was very recreational and casual to, now very structured and professional. And, having been part of this community for 20 years, it's given me the opportunity to sort of see that evolution take place and actually, as a player, be part of it and be able to, experience everything that's happened in the last few years. It's really been fun to be part of, but I felt like there was a gap. And, flag football is the fastest growing sport in the world with the youth, right? Literally every country, everywhere, it's exploding. You've got opportunities at the collegiate level now, especially for women, to get scholarships, right? In Canada, the US, Mexico. It's really growing. So there's pathways for women to continue playing beyond just club and high school. They can play at the collegiate level. They can get scholarships. But after that, the real only opportunities that we saw and, that existed were either you get selected for your national team, which is exciting. And, the Olympic inclusion is amazing, but that's only 60 athletes who will participate in that on the women's side. Yeah. Obviously 60 on the men's as well. It's every 4 years, and even the world championships are every 2 years. So it's, it's rather infrequent. And so there's a gap there. And then we feel like there's a real opportunity to give these athletes the stage to highlight the performance, the world-class athletes that we have in flag, and create this professional setting for them to compete. And so, if you don't want to play recreationally, the only option that exists today is your national team, right? And the recreational stuff is fun. We all do it.
Yeah.
But for some players, right, there really needs to be something bigger and better. There needs to be an opportunity for them, to be compensated for their participation, to put on a show for fans. I think the next generation, the athletes growing up playing flag football, they want that. They need that. They need these role models, right? And I think that that's really what we're trying to fill with World Flag Series, is to create that platform that's really about the athletes. It's not about the World Flag Series. It's about the athletes.
Yeah. I mean, when did this idea first come into your head? It was you and your Joseph that were doing this. When did you first think we might do something here?
I think people in the flag community have talked about what professional flag football could look like for a really long time. It's always one of those topics of conversation when you're having a beer after the game. You're like, where could this go? But I think there's been, a lot of false starts, a lot of people who have said they were going to do things and it just hasn't really happened. And, my background for those who don't know is in entrepreneurship. I built a rather educational technology company that I scaled up. So, I know what it takes to build a big entity from the ground up. And it was about a year ago, last summer, myself and my co-founder, Joe, we were training. I trained with some of the guys locally, and, we were talking about this. And he was the one that was kind of like, you're the perfect person to make this happen. You're the perfect person to actually go and build this, because you build companies from the ground up. Nobody is more engaged in the community than you are. This world, you're passionate about it. It's been 2 decades. So, put it together. And I was a little reluctant. It wasn't the first thing I was thinking of every day at that time. And then as time went on, We continued to talk about it. We started to like think, what could it look like? What should it look like? And then we had a ton of conversations with players, Nausicaa being one of them, but many others. And we sort of said, like, is this something that might interest you? Would you want to participate in this? What about this format? And collected so much feedback. I had the chance, obviously, to play internationally over the last year or two. So I've heard from my players on my team that I've played against. Like, I've had a lot of conversations. And it really gave me the confidence to go and build this because I knew what the players wanted. And I think I have a really good idea what the fans want as well. And so, that's what we're trying to do is really create that experience that's obviously, putting the players first, but creating a memorable experience for the fans at the same time.
Yeah. And Oscar, from yourself, before we come to what it's going to give you going forward, like when you first heard of this idea being floated from Phil, what was your initial thoughts on it?
So at
You can
first,
be honest. You can be honest.
at first I had so many questions because I talked to a lot of people from everywhere that are trying to do some of the same things, or they're trying to make flag football a pro sport. And so they pitched me so many things that were so unrealistic that I had so many questions for Phil. But Phil was super prepared in our meeting. And like, I literally like asked him really inquisitive questions because it's really important to me that the athletes are actually like compensated, or how does it work? Like how it is. And I feel like this is a tournament that is not pretentious. Like they don't want to be a festival or the Coachella of flag football or stuff like that. They just want to be a tournament where girls, instead of paying to play, they get paid to play, and where they can actually showcase their abilities, and where they can actually be role models for the next generation who's coming, because the next generation doesn't have a lot of role models still. So, and the NFL is doing a great job with the NFL ambassadors, and they're doing such a great job with their own league that they're building, but we don't know anything yet about that. So in the meantime, like creating these tournaments that are super real, that are happening, that unite like 30 girls from all over the world to play together. It makes me super happy because I used to participate to these tournaments at the World Games of Tackle Football that they made years and years ago. We weren't paid, of course. We had to pay to play. But it was amazing to be able to play with other girls from other countries, because when are you going to be able to do that? Like, even if there's a pro league in the future, I don't know how many spots for international players there will be. We don't know anything yet. So it's exciting to imagine what a tournament like this could be like. And Phil, we just got on a call. We talked about it and it looked incredible. It looked very simple too, like not crazy, but super simple to do and actually launch. And then, when I heard of so many other girls that were on board, it was even better. Sometimes the fact that the national teams are incredible. It's an incredible experience being in a national team. But also the choices of the coaches of a national team are very personal. And I can tell you this in my country, but in all the countries. I had conversations with the best athletes in the world, included Diana Flores. And all the choices in a national team are difficult for the coaches, are difficult for the players. It's a very competitive environment. So sometimes you don't get the spot, not because you're not the best athlete or the best teammate or both, but because it's a personal choice. And it makes sense. It's life. You can't control everything, right? So these tournaments, like the World Series, are so important because it gives you the chance to compete at the highest level in another way, and not only in the space of the national team, but something way better and bigger. I mean, not maybe better than a world championship or the Olympics, but something at the same level, which is something hard to find, because in all the European tournaments, for example, you can't play with somebody from Australia, right? Like, when are you going to be able to do that? So this is very cool. And the fact that Phil was in this environment for years, and the week before he called me, it was like I was at the Adria Bowl, which is a small town in Croatia. Like, not everybody goes there. I was like, okay, like the guy knows what he's talking about, So it was really comforting for me, because I think that these tournaments should be from the athletes to the athletes. Of course, there must be a lot of funding and whatever you want, but it should be made by athletes, because they actually understand what we go through. Because if Phil has traveled just like me to go in the middle of nowhere to play flag, there's always a horse somewhere when you're playing flag in Europe. You're playing, there's a horse in front of you because it's in the prairie next to the field. So we've been in those spaces and he knows what we need. So I feel like it's going to be a great experience for that.
Excellent. Phil, obviously the biggest hurdle is getting the players on board. That is one of the biggest hurdles you face. But what other challenges did you face trying to get this idea off the ground?
Where do I start? I think the way that Nausicaa explained it is really accurate, to be honest. The way that myself and Joseph, my co-founder, approached it was, let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be. There's already so much complexity in putting on a professional event, right? With the broadcast and everything else that's going on, the venue. Let's keep the format. Let's keep everything that we're doing relatively simple and straightforward, right? And from our perspective, we wanted to make sure not only this event happened, but it happened and it was memorable. And in order to make it memorable, yes, there's little things, the details matter, but the less that you're doing, sometimes the better the experience actually will be. And we've told all of our athletes this from the beginning. We're not over-promising anything, right? We're telling you exactly what the experience is going to be like, right? It's going to be amazing. And like the actual gameplay, that's going to be chaos, right? Like the players are going to be out there. It's going to be unpredictable. I don't know what's going to happen. But that's what's fun in sports, right? Yeah. What's not fun in sports is dealing with the logistics, the headaches, all these other things. So we took that away from the players. We handle all of that, right? We're taking care of everything that makes the experience frustrating for a player. Let them focus on what they're great at, which is performing in front of fans, making highlight reel plays, engaging with the fans, their opponents, right? Their teammates. That's the stuff that the players need to be focused on. And so we just simplified it and said, you guys are going to naturally make this memorable. All we need to do is make sure that everything happens. And that's what we did.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of flag football. It is a simple sport at its purest form. There's nothing complicated about it. It is 5v5 on a small field and everyone knows what they're doing. So like you said, Phil, take away all the complexity of it, focus on the actual games themselves, and you're going to have a spectacle.
Yeah, literally. And, one of the things that was really important for us was that we brought the right players together. And I think the way that we approach it is actually quite different than some of the national teams may be approaching it. We're looking for players that obviously can compete at the highest level. You have to be an incredible talent. It's professional sports, right? We're able to handpick the best players from all over the world. But it goes beyond just being talented on the field. We need players that have recognizable personalities that will engage well with the fans, right? An 8-year-old girl who's watching this will be able to fall in love or hate a player, right? Like, you can play the villain. That's fine too. You can be the sweetheart. Like, that's amazing. But we want the fans to connect with the athletes. So we look for very specific personality traits with the athletes that we think will resonate very well with our audience and help grow the game and help the next generation of athletes, of flag football athletes, fall in love with players and have role models to look up to, right? And in 5 or 10 years from now, they're going to be talking about, how many WFS championships has so-and-so won, right? How many rings do they have? Like, that's going to be really cool for athletes, especially young kids as they grow up and they get to watch these athletes continue to be professionals and continue to put on a show, be role models. This is what I feel like the sport has really been lacking. And the reality is, when it was a smaller sport and it wasn't as big and it wasn't as prominent internationally, it didn't really require that. And I don't know if there was necessarily the support that would allow it to happen. Today, though, completely different, right? You've got people that want to support this, sponsors who want to be involved, players who want to be involved, fans who want to be involved. Now you've got the ecosystem. Now you can actually make this happen.
Yeah, I think it is phenomenal when you say that, Phil, because I first played flag football 20 years ago, and our home games are played on a bit of grass in a public pitch. That was like you had to find a bit of grass in it, and that's what you played on. And that was, to see where it's got to now, it blows my mind that this is the same sport that I played 20 years ago. So we'll come on to the growth of the game generally as we go through the chat. But no, Scriff, from yourself, obviously you said you had that chat with Phil about coming on board and being involved in it. Obviously not ask you to give us a whole detail of the conversation you had, but what sort of things did Phil tell you during that conversation that made you think, yeah, I want to get involved in this?
Like I said, they were super transparent. Like Phil was super transparent with everything. And I mean, like I said, like being able to play with somebody from Australia or with somebody they usually play against, which is crazy. We didn't have the teams. We don't have the teams yet, so we don't know. But it's still incredible to be able to play with players that you've been looking up to, or that you admire so much, but you will never be on the same national team, ever. And even if there are tournaments in Tampa and whatever, but you usually go with your club, right? You don't go
Yeah.
with these random people. So it's going to be amazing to be able to do just that. Like, I was at Super Bowl with Cody Fuller in February, and we were thinking like we should play together, but I live in Italy, she lives in Australia, so it's really hard, right? And but Phil made that come true. So next time we will wish for $1 million, and Phil will make it happen. No, for real, it was, and you know what? It's crazy that tomorrow, if I go to the gym and people ask me, "What do you do?" I'm a professional like football athlete. That's what I'm gonna answer from now on, because that's what we are. And sometimes I think we should consider ourselves pro athletes, even if we have a job. It's not our main job yet, but that's how you set the tone. That's how you set the standard. So that's what we're trying to do here. And I think and like I said, it was super realistic. Nothing crazy. We're not going to give you equity of the team by now until 20 years. No, we're going to give you this. If travel is paid for, which is already like great, right? And I know the bar is low for us, but this is what we've been used to before. Like, you're your athletes, you are a team manager, you are a travel manager for yourself, for the team. Like, that's what we're used to. So they're treating us like professionals, and that's what we want. I mentioned before the call with you guys that I was training with OBJ 2 weeks ago because I was there with the elite week of Athletes First, and I was there for my own business, but I got lucky enough to be able to train with these guys. And like, Athletes First let me think that I'm a professional athlete. They treated me like a professional athlete, like Jordan Love, like OBJ, where I was training with them, and I'm just like them. And that's what we have to aim for. We have to consider ourselves like that. And so many girls are doing an amazing job doing that. Ashley Clem, Diana Flores, they are that standard. But not every girl is like that. So we have to set that standard for each other and also individually. That's why it's so important what Phil said about having personalities, because we never had opportunities, right? So we had to create them for ourselves, but we make the best out of opportunities. And this is one of those opportunities where you can really showcase your personality and your story and share it with so many other people. So it's cool. It's really cool. And that's why I said immediately yes. And I had so many other things going on. This was something I really wanted to do.
Yeah. And you mentioned already Code de Flow there, and you've also got other players coming across Europe, from South America, North America. That literally is a global tournament that you're going to have. From a player's point of view, and someone that's grown up playing this game as a female, how important do you think it is to have players from across the world as role models for girls and boys across the world?
It's so important, man. I know, because I went to so many tournaments of kids in the UK, for example, for the London Games, the NFL London Games. And I was asking these girls, do you know this girl? Do you know this girl? Who's your role model? And they don't know. They don't know Phoebe Schechter. They don't know Yana Flores. They don't. And last year when I interviewed them and they didn't know, I was like, they're going to know next year. Because I'm gonna work so hard for them to know, So I feel like it's so important. We looked for our role models in the NFL. That's why I was rambling about OBJ, because for me to train with him was crazy, right? For anyone, I think, but for a woman, even more. And he was my role model, like so many others, right? But it's important for us to find our women and girls role models out there, because they are made like us, because they make the cuts as we make them, because they have the feet that we have, the hands that we have. Like, we're different from men, and it's okay. We just love being girls. And so we have to find these role models and be those role models for the next girls that are coming up. They have to be able to look up to someone. And in my case, for example, my entire family, or at least my dad, was very much against me playing football. The next girl who's going to learn about that, maybe she will feel less alone. And she will know that it's okay that other people don't like and don't approve what you do, because now it's an Olympic sport. So it's definitely worth it. Nobody can tell you that it's a waste of time anymore. So I feel like that's why it's so important, because there's so many parts of our stories that we should share with these girls. When I mentioned before that I talked to Diana Flores with very important and deep conversations about the national team, Diana Flores almost quit her national team many years ago because of the pressure, because of different situations that she lived. And being able to share those things with the next girl who's going through the same process of selection is so important, because we're not all perfect. We have so many challenges, and we have to talk about those challenges with these kids and being able to not only inspire them, but just tell them that the only way is through, is through those challenges to become a better player, to become who Diana Flora is today. So I think it's very important to share those things.
Yeah. And Phil, you mentioned yourself about the reason for doing this was you seen a gap and you thought we need to fill that gap. We need that professional league there. Now, when you look at flag football in general, they're starting to become that pathway from young kids up to, like you say, college level, the professional level. And it's a gradual increase now. And I think going forward, that's going to be so important for this next generation that they can see that pathway effectively to the top. And this is you guys always been another step in that. Is that kind of fair to say?
100%. And my goal in all of this is for that next generation of athletes to have something to work towards and see these players on a stage and think to themselves, I can be there one day. I'm going to be there one day, right? And then for years, they go to the gym, right? They go on the field, they train, and they're thinking about that goal. And that exists in almost every other sport, right? Growing up in Montreal, hockey was everything for us here, right? You watch the Montreal Canadiens, you watch, the NHL, you have a ton of people who you can look up to and be like, every day when I go on the ice, I'm trying to be this person, right? And I feel like in flag, that gap has existed for a really long time. And now there's going to be a chance for the next generation of boys and girls to look up to these athletes and, to say there's going to be a moment in 10 years from now, right? When, one of our quarterbacks is on the field, later in their career and somebody who idolized them, is playing against them and beats them, right? And those are the storylines that, I think make sports so magical. There's going to be some little girl who's going to be at WFS, walk away with a jersey, right? And 10 years from now, she's going to be on the field playing against that person whose jersey they wore. And it's going to be memorable for them for so many reasons, but it's going to be sort of like that journey that got them to that point because they had people to look up to, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, there have been so many women who have paved the way to make this possible, right? And it would be nice to have a way to recognize all of them. And a lot of them maybe aren't even in the sport anymore. Players who, 15, 20 years ago were, far more prominent and now maybe got out of the game, but it took everybody's collective efforts to get us to this point. And now I feel like all we're doing is really just giving the platform, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything to train the athletes. They're already training like professionals. I don't have to do anything in order to ask them to be pros. All we're doing is giving them the platform. They're doing everything else.
Yeah. And Oscar, from yourself, how important do you think having this set up is going to be for the future of the sport?
It's going to be super important because so many other tournaments will follow, so many other formats. And the idea that we love about flag is that you can play all year long. The more you play, the better you get at it. And that's something that in tackle you can't do because it's so physically demanding. So I feel like it's very important for this tournament to exist right now because I'm telling you, when I've been announced as one of the participants, everybody went crazy in my country, completely crazy. They were like, is it going to be for everyone in the future? Do you think they're going to do more? Do you think they're going to choose more people? I'm like, yeah, they're definitely going to do another series the same with other people. So of course, just get out there and put yourself out there because they're going to scout you. They're going to see you. Or if you want to get scouted, make sure you hit up these people. Everybody went crazy. It was there was one more Northern Star. Because guys, at the Olympics, it's only 6 teams. It's only 6 teams. And it's really hard to qualify for countries that are putting everything they have into this. But somehow it's not enough, and it's not because they don't have players. It's just that everything is different. The resources are different. The coaches are different. And so only 6 spots is crazy, right? It's not a lot of spots in general. So it's hard in general. It would be nice to have 12, right? Or have at least 8 in the World Games. So 6 spots is nothing. We need more Northern Stars. It can't be only the Olympics. The Olympics, of course, is the pinnacle. Everybody wants to go there. It's incredible. I would go to clean the shoes of the girls at the Olympics. I would do everything to be there anyway, But it can be only that because what do? if we don't qualify at the Olympics? We drop every program. What's our Northern Star? So I think that this is one of the stars. Why not?
Yeah.
It's different. It's not the same, but it's something pro. It's something that allows you to play with incredible players at a super high level, and it makes you feel really flattered to be selected. So I think that it's going to be very important in the future.
Yeah. And Phil, thinking about the future of WFS, what is the long-term plan? I'm asking you to put all your eggs in one basket here. What's the ongoing plan after the first one?
We're already working on WFS too. And, it's funny, we talk about the Olympics. The Olympics are 2 years away from now. We might have done a dozen, we might have done 20 WFSs by then, right? And so these two things coexist, but I like the way you framed it as having, multiple North Stars. And I think that that's the reality is we want to give as many athletes the opportunity. Our format is tour format. We move around, right? And our goal, and we've been very clear about this from the beginning, is that this is international. Yes, the first event is taking place in Tampa, and Tampa is a huge hub for flag football. We all know that. But our second event's not going to be, in Tampa. It's going to be in a new venue, in a new location, in a new country, right? And then it's going to continue to move around. So we're already working on the future of the, of the league, of the format, how it's going to evolve. But I will say the fans are going to be the ones who dictate what that really looks like. And I don't have all of the answers because they're the ones who are going to ultimately decide, what works, what do they want more of, right? What doesn't work? What do we want to remove? Should it stay women's? Should we have co-ed? Should it be men? Should there be a men's on one day, a women's on another day? All of that is possible, right? It really depends on what the fans want and, the feedback that we receive. So, I've had the fortune of obviously building and scaling businesses in the past. The goal of this is to build something that's really sustainable, right? We're not doing one event and disappearing, right? The goal is for this to continue to grow, to do it in a very calculated manner. We're not overpromising anything. We're really taking this in a controlled manner, but we're delivering on our promises and we're going to continue to deliver on our promises. And that's the way that you build something that's sustainable. That's the way that you build something that I think can really last and stand the test of time. And that's what we want to do because I have 2 young daughters. I want them one day to be able to come to these events and look up to the athletes. And then, when the time is there, maybe for them to participate if they love flag the way that I do, right? But at least have that opportunity that exists. So it's certainly a long-term plan. We're excited about it. I don't think anything that we're doing is intended to, to be short-term. It's also not intended. We're not going into this with all the answers, right? Yeah. We're going into this and we're learning as we go. And I think that's the right way of doing this. You don't need to have everything, 100% A to Z polished because that's just not how the world works, right? Yeah. Things change. We have a whole new generation of kids that are growing up playing flag football. What are they going to like? How are they going to evolve as a generation? That's going to shape what we need to do as well, right? The way that we engage with them, the content that we put out, the venues that we choose, all of that is really going to have to work for that generation. So that's what I'm most excited about is really taking that long-term perspective in all this and thinking about, what can be, it's going to keep growing. It's going to be huge. There's no timeline to make this happen quickly. Yeah. We're going to continue to do it. We're going to continue to grow and we're going to put on these amazing events and keep showcasing the incredible talent that flag football has.
Excellent. I always want to be the first to say, Phil, I want to pitch Scotland as a venue for your world tour. You need to come to Scotland at some point and put on one of the tournaments here.
Nothing is closed off to us right now. We are more than open to all locations, all venues. And so if there's anybody who thinks we should be there and you've got a community that will be supportive of this, get in touch with us, have your economic development teams reach out and see how can we work together to make this happen? Because we love the idea of, having the whole community behind this. And again, Tampa has been amazing for us for this. They've been so supportive. We know that it's just going to set the standard and we're going to grow from it.
And Phil, so anybody that wants to kind of keep up to the tournament and what's going on, talk us through kind of how you can see it, buy tickets, all that sort of stuff, kind of pitches how it all works.
Instagram is obviously a great place to stay in touch with us. Our handle's at World Flag Series, pretty easy, pretty straightforward. You can reach out. Our website is worldflagseries.com. We're pretty accessible. I will say we had a much larger response than originally anticipated when we announced this. And for all the athletes, we had like literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of athletes at this point who have reached out, and we haven't been able to get back to every one of them. So I do feel badly about that. It may not be because you're not good enough that you're not getting the looks. It's just that, we have to manage our resources. And luckily we have, when we announced everything, we already had our athletes, right? And a lot of the athletes, they were taking a chance on us, right? And I think a lot of these athletes, they believe in the game and they want to be part of something special. And so we really appreciate that and the sacrifices that they've made and they're making. It's not overlooked by us, the fact that they are traveling into a new country for a lot of them, or to a new city to participate in this, to put on a show, right? They're stepping away from their life back home, but they get to be professional athletes on the other side of it. And so that's pretty cool.
So it's 2 weeks away from when we record this, which is the 25th of July. How can people keep up to date with what's going on over the weekend when the games are going on?
So we'll actually have like the whole broadcast being live streamed without a paywall. That information we're going to share closer to the date, how everyone will be able to watch it. But follow us on Instagram. You'll be able to stay up to speed with everything that's going on there. For us, it was really important that internationally people would be able to watch this live. We'll have the ability, so people will be able to bet on this. There'll be sports betting, which is really cool for the first time in flag football. So wow. I think people are going to be excited about that. Yeah. You'll have some player props. So all of this stuff, all the training is actually going to matter. You'll have a whole new generation of fans who may be interested in the outcome of the game. And so I would say, stay on top of our social media. If people have direct requests, you can reach out to me. My Instagram handle is @QBCutler. You can email me as well, phil@worldflagseries.com. But we're full steam ahead on this. It is 2 weeks away. But we've got some really cool surprises that are coming. So I'm not going to give everything away right now. But you'll have to follow on game day. You'll have to watch the event take place, because the 30 women that we're going to have on the field are going to put on an absolute show for our fans, both the ones that are in the stadium, but also the ones who are going to be watching the broadcast at home. I guarantee it.
I'm really looking forward to it. It's something since when you reached out to us and told us about it, I thought this is going to be special. And then every time a new player's name gets announced and you see who's involved, it just gets more and more exciting. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for your time. It's been great to chat to you, Nausicaa. I really hope you get onto the team and get to play with the people you want to play with during the tournament. So good luck to you during the tournament.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see who's in my team. And but you will see a lot of content. So make sure you follow the athletes too, because we'll put on a show. Like with me, Cody, and Louisa, all these girls, like we do content every day. We have metas, we have everything going on, so that we can bring you behind the scenes.
There's going to be some crazy content. There's going to be some great content from the event. That is something I have no question. I'm completely confident.
Yeah. And Oscar, like you mentioned, being at the Super Bowl with Cody, the amount of content that you girls all put out across that weekend was hilarious as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. You guys get back together.
Exactly. Unfortunately, Mona won't be there because she's playing her finals in Dusseldorf, but she's also a great one. So you'll see great content. We promised you great content. You will get great content.
Excellent. And Phil, thanks for coming on and talking us through the setup, and thanks for getting us involved and everything with it. It's been a pleasure talking to you and being able to share the story of the league.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And thanks for everything you're doing to grow flag football internationally as well.
Thanks very much for that.
We appreciate it. We really appreciate it, man.
Perfect. For everyone that's watching and listening, thank you for tuning in to this special episode with Phil and Nausicaa. We will be back very soon. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and TikTok for all latest content. Until next time, we'll see you soon.